My name is Diana Price, educator and school services librarian here for Burlington County Library System. So I connect teachers to resources that can help their classroom. I read a lot of children's books in general, and I do a lot of story times, so I get picture book and fiction, but also I just kind of wander the stacks a lot. If something catches my eye, I pick it up. If it's in good condition, I pick it up. Sometimes if it's in really, really bad condition, I pick it up, because that means it's clearly been loved quite a lot. The spine has to be pretty eye-catching, because we have a lot of books. So this one is called Working Boats, and inside look at 10 amazing watercraft. I'm very fascinated by it, and as somebody who likes reality TV, it reminds me of Below Deck, which is a fantastic reality show. But I mean, it's clearly about like the workings of a boat, not just like fancy cruises. So that's interesting to me. This is cool. I really like diagrams in nonfiction books. I don't tend to reach for nonfiction a whole lot, and like I'm drawn to this. It's explaining the inner workings of tugboats and like the different kinds. I like how much the art matches. Like there was that big picture that I looked at, I don't even remember how many pages ago. This one. I feel like this really well reflects the cover, or the cover really well reflects like what's actually in the book. I like the crabs. I'm assuming that this is the graphic novel version of the TV show / video game. So for me, it was more not even just the title, but the typeset and like this little symbol over here. The typeset immediately reminded me of the title card of the show, which I see on Netflix all the time. I'm very visually sensitive, and so the reason I don't read a lot of graphic novels is because they tend to just be like mobs of colors and text and just tons of things to look at. And so I actually feel like I could read something like this because it's beautiful and it still holds true to the graphic novel format. Something like this would be awesome because I wouldn't need to take breaks from it. My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. It's either going to be a satire or it's just going to be a throwback to retro horror. I took an entire semester studying horror specifically. A lot of what we studied was both like the origins of horror, but then the golden era of 70s horror where special effects were taken to a different level for the first time. And so like that's the kind of thing that this makes me think of, but it doesn't make me think of like a very specific horror movie right off the bat. High school sophomores, Abby and Gretchen have been best friends since 4th grade. But after an evening of skinny dipping goes disastrously wrong, Gretchen begins to act different. Is their friendship powerful enough to beat the devil? It almost looked like there were like choose your own adventure style cards in here. I don't know, so this one says, are you driving away your best friend? You both swore to study for the big English test together. Suddenly she cancels to you A, B, C, D. I find that really cool. Like that's the kind of thing that makes me want to read this because I want to understand exactly why I'm being asked these questions. This is cool. It feels like the kind of thing that would have like a playlist ready to go while you're reading along. A Scatter of Light by Melinda Lowe. It has that kind of a quintessential YA design, very eye-catching. I think it's very colorful, so I'd be interested to know if it's potentially an LGBTQ story. So like the tagline is a masterful queer coming-of-age story set against the backdrop of the first major Supreme Court decisions legalizing gay marriage. Coming-of-age stories are such a classic, and anybody who works with kids or books for kids, coming-of-age stories are like our bread and butter. Having it be queer, coming-of-age, kind of involving families, but maybe also minimal drama. That's always really nice when you can pick a queer story that's more about like happiness and self-discovery than just like a whole lot of trauma. I think the cover's I guessed it was a queer YA book, but I think the cover is a little bit more one of those, you read the synopsis, then the cover makes sense, then you go into the story and you're like, oh, okay, I can tie it all together. I know who these people are, I know what that car is, I probably know where that cliff is. That's pretty common in YA, where the cover is almost like a direct scene taken out of the books. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is like a very significant moment in the book, but it's not telling you as much detail about what the book is going to be. I'm the Boss by Elise Gravel. It reminds me of, I don't know if anybody's gonna understand this reference. There used to be these things called ugly dolls. My dad used to buy them for me all the time, and I had like 4, and that's what this guy reminds me of. It reminds me of ugly dolls. It's definitely about a monster just kind of wanting what he wants, and maybe being told no a lot. That's the kind of topic that is really important in board books. Board books are for our tiniest readers. So they teach a lot about like different kinds of values at more simplistic levels, and also things like colors and shapes and numbers. I would not normally like actively read a board book. Sometimes I'll pick up different board books if I think that they're about like a topic that would be good for a story time that I'm doing that's coming up, or if there's something on the cover that makes me think back to something. Like, I find this to be very nostalgic, even though I've never seen this before, just because it reminds me of ugly dolls. I don't think I even realized how much, once you live around books so much, it gets easier and easier to like read book covers. And I think that's really helpful, because as we're looking for books to recommend to patrons, anybody who comes in with a specific topic, you can look up a bunch of books. Chances are at least a couple of them aren't going to be where they're supposed to be. It's really important to kind of just be able to like really quickly shelf read and grab a couple things that you know are going to fit the topic and are going to make a patron happy. I think covers are a lot more important nowadays, and you can see that a lot with authors who are getting new updated versions of old books made. Just looking at that kind of thing, you can see how much more important covers have gotten and how important publishers are finding it to make sure the covers are staying relevant and they're not just like completely going out with the times and becoming the kind of thing that nobody really wants to pick up anymore.